welcome to the Small Business Online Training EOI presentation. Just recently, the Queensland government has come up with $4 million to be allocated to the Small Business Online Training Package. Effectively, this is an offering to Queensland businesses or businesses that operate within Queensland to be able to deliver unlimited on-demand training to those people affected by COVID. So thanks for joining us. We're going to get into this now and just cover off what this EOI is for, what we think, that is to say Thomas, Pollock and I, who's joined us. Say hi, Thomas.
Hey, everyone.
Hi, Thomas.
So Thomas has joined us. Thomas used to run a training company, so he's very familiar with training organizations, but he's recently written a book, which we're going to hear about shortly, and it's all about being able to enable small businesses to get money from the government through their various RPLs, EOI type arrangements. Do you want to just introduce yourself quickly, Thomas, so we've got a bit of background there?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Scott. Thanks for having me. Yeah, look, I've spent 20 years in the education sector. Ended up sort of running a Queensland location for an education provider, but I missed the last 10 years of that. I missed the client-facing side of things. So I sort of specialised, pigeonholed myself into managing our government clients in Queensland. So what I've basically done is over the last 12 to 18 months, I've got a real soft spot for small businesses, and I made a lot of mistakes when I targeted government business in the beginning. So I thought, what's the best way that I can help that small business sector? And that was to try and get as many of them applying for government, or opening up government revenue streams, whether it's be through tenders or grants or BAU. And yeah, so I've put together a book called Winning Government Business, The 6 Rules and 9 Absolutes, which got published in April. And yeah, that's my life now, is helping small businesses open up those government revenue streams, and it's far more enjoyable than and more satisfying as well. So yeah, that's pretty much me.
Cool. Thank you very much, Thomas. That's excellent. Okay, let's get straight into it now. So the contents of what we're going to be covering here, we're going to look at the overview of what this EOI is about. We're going to look for the criteria for the application that's at the beginning of the document. I'm going to look at the evaluation criteria, which are within the document quite specific. We're going to look at the risks associated with undertaking an EOI like this, or what if you're successful enough to win it, which would be pretty exciting. And we've got some suggested response schedule, some tips, and an FAQ. So those are the topics we're going to be covering now. So I'll get straight into them. Okay, so there's a few definitions you probably need to be aware of. So EOI is a definition or an acronym for expression of interest. DESBIT, I don't know how you pronounce that, but that's meant to be the Department of Employment, Small Business and Training, which is where this EOI has come from. And SaaS, which is Software as a Service. Now, this is interesting because software as a service is usually attributed to things like maybe CRM packages or student management systems, but they're actually considering software as a service from the point of view of a training delivery. As everyone knows, you tend to buy a license fee, and so that's the things about a software as a service type delivery, where you've got an ongoing payments maybe every year, and effectively that covers both the hosting and usually also covers the upgrades to the software. So they refer to that within the EOI. So before I go into this overview, I just want to show you the document. I've got the document here for you to have a look at. It's a Word document you can download. We'll include the link to this document in the description on YouTube. And you can also do a search for it, of course, on the government websites. Search for small business online training, specifically that reference number there. That could be relevant to look for. That's going to be unique for this particular EOI. It's a few pages long. I can't remember how many. Let's see, about 20 pages long. But as you go through it, you can sort of have a look at all the different items in there. Have you got that, Tracy? Have you received that document?
Yeah, I do. I've got that printed out here.
Great, excellent. Yeah. So we're going to be going through this document, not in detail, but just picking out the bits that we think are quite relevant. So hopefully this can be insightful. Okay, so the submissions close on Monday, 6th of July, 2 p.m. Now, I guess I don't need to stress, please try and get it in on time. Nothing worse than getting it in late, particularly after you've done a bit of work. They're particularly interested in access to existing resources, products, and services. So if you're already a training organisations that have resources, products, and services, then this is a good opportunity for you. They want access to new services that specifically support employment and economic recovery. Okay, so this is all about people losing their jobs, businesses having revenue drops, and having challenging times in relationship to COVID-19. So they want to target COVID-19 in Queensland. I'm not going to go through all those items, but you can see there they're interested. Oh, we've got someone else here who wants to join us. So Jameson McKenzie's going to be joining us. Hopefully Jameson's interested in the EOI and hasn't sort of randomly found our
Hello.
Hey Jameson, how are you going?
Hello.
Hey there, Jameson. Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I'm just testing the speaker here for Dennis.
Okay, no worries at all. That's cool. Excellent.
Can you see us okay?
We can't see you at all, actually. You're just a black box, but that's okay.
That's all right. We can hear you all right, Scott.
Excellent. Okay, Dennis. No worries at all.
Thanks, Tom, man.
Good on you. Okay, so we just started, actually, Dennis, so you don't have to worry too much about having missed anything exciting. All the exciting bits are yet to come, okay? So this EOI is about targeting COVID-19 impacted Queenslanders. Small businesses, employees. There's a lot of listings there about employees, not just, I mean, they've got a whole range here, which I think is quite good. It sort of opens up the possibility of having some nice descriptions about how you feel as though training will benefit people. And being training organizations yourselves, you're going to know this already. Do you notice anything as an overview, Thomas, that might be worthwhile mentioning here?
Look, the main thing I'd really want to make light of, not make light of, but make note of here is these 5 lines, bullet points at the bottom here, small business owners. So the target market that this EOI is relevant to in your submissions, as much as you can, keep bringing it, if you do submit, keep bringing your proposals back to how it's going to impact this particular target market. Don't drift off, don't sort of widen it, the more succinct, and keep it as brief as possible, but definitely we want to be addressing those markets because that's what the government's putting $4 million aside for. And when they do roll out whoever the partners are, who they decide to partner with, that is the market that it's all going to be going out to, who'll be able to access it. So just keep bringing your submission back to to that market there, or those markets.
Yeah, I think actually something that I've learned when I'm doing these sorts of things is I try and focus on reusing the exact terminology that they use.
Yeah,
so I don't talk about just sort of people who aren't working as much. I literally say employees who are underemployed. So I try and use those that same phraseology just to emphasize to the reader. Because remember, these guys are probably going to get a heap of responses. And so they've got to be able to read through it relatively quickly. I really like using bullet points. I really like, in fact, because they've got a listing here of those 5 items, I reckon that if you're going to respond to this and talk about those, literally each of your 5 bullet points should cover these items, even maybe as a heading. So I try and make it as easy as possible.
Yeah.
Okay. So, evaluation criteria. So the first criteria is about skills, knowledge, and experience. And we're going to go into the detail of each of these shortly. So this is just the overall 5 levels of criteria. Proposed small business training, service, online and deliverables, 19 response business support, time frame and reporting, and value for money. Of course, you definitely had to that value for money coming in there somewhere. Okay, so the skills, knowledge, and experience. You're identified as a Queensland-based business, and this doesn't actually mean you have to be a Queensland registered business. You can actually be from outside Queensland, but if the majority of your work is within Queensland, or a substantial amount of work, I'd have to go back to the EOI for the exact wording of this, but if it is, then you're still relevant. So that widens the scope of potential competitors as well, I guess, for those Queensland-based businesses. got to provide an outline to your relevant skills, knowledge, and experience. And in this, you want to describe the history of your organization, how long you've worked in a particular sector, what level of expertise have you demonstrated. Experience might be specific examples of, say, trainers, ways you've contributed to the knowledge in the community of the particular sector that you're working in, those sorts of things. Outline the brief projects. This is always good to have. This is the sort of thing that you can use beyond just an EOI. If you have an outline of the projects you've delivered, and these might be as simple as, a school contacted us. In the case of Tracy, they wanted us to deliver a new way of learning. So we devised this new way of learning for them. We rolled it out to them over a course of 2 months. We did customer feedback forms, we did quality checking. This is the sort of description that you want to outline a project that is at least similar or along the same lines of what you're proposing to do in the EOI.
If I could add to that as well, Scott.
Yep.
This is the section where, be proud, I guess, is one way to put it, or don't be shy. Shout it from the rooftops. Anything that your organisation has done, which is worth noting. Any awards you've won, any instructors who have perhaps won some awards or done some pretty remarkable stuff. Make note of it here, because effectively each section of this criteria you'll be getting scored on. And the more things you can put in that, without waffling, the more things that are relevant that you can put in here will help you get that higher, that higher grade, if you like. Even better if you can provide some evidence as well. And that goes across all of these criteria, but if you can attach some evidence, whether it's references or, I don't know, anything to back up your skills, knowledge, and experience there, then that's going to help you score highly in this particular section as well.
Yeah, in fact, you've mentioned something interesting there, and I'll just go back to the previous slide. You notice that there is actually no weighting on these items. So we don't know what is the most important. And all we can do, I guess, is guess that they're equally important. And what tends to happen is that often the value for money will be proportioned based on sort of, what do you cost relative to someone else? But these are very, they're actually asking for ideas. This is an expression of interest. So it's asking for different ideas. They're going to be very hard to compare the benefits for, because they're going to be offering different things. So I think when it comes to value for money, that's going to be tricky for them to calculate. So it is really about, how you can persuade people that what you're doing is going to be unique and anything that you can offer. There's details of third-party providers used on the delivery of this as a service. So if there's any partners you can work with, for example, we're a student management system. So the idea is that we can work with you or with an organization to provide a way of taking the bookings, processing the registrations, delivering the certificates. If you're planning, like just delivering a certificate, for example, for those people who complete these courses, I think is a valuable thing to do. So being able to add those in as being things that will distinguish you from others that just offer a blatant course. So this is a bit of a train of thought here, but while I'm thinking of it, point out the fact that the material that you have is from Queensland. The fact that you're going to be using Queensland businesses, you're going to be using Queensland-based trainers, you're going to be using Queensland language, Australian language, as opposed to American language, which is very easy to do, right? It's easy to go and buy an American course, but it's not localized. And I think those sorts of things will really make the difference as well. Maybe not so relevant for this particular section, but I just wanted to quickly get out there before I forgot about it. So this is where it comes into proposed service and deliverable. This is about what you're planning on delivering. So they want to know about how you're going to meet the requirements. So that's meeting the requirements on targeting those audiences. How you're going to do, how is this training going to be delivered? They want methodologies for any innovative solution. So if you're going to do something different, if you're going to do something creative, this is where you talk about how creative this is and how this hasn't been done before, or how it's been uniquely done by you. Maybe even merging ideas from one sector of the community and putting it into your particular area. That can be a demonstration of the way you're going to mix and match things based on COVID. Everything's being shaken up as a result of COVID. So a good opportunity to do that. details about online platforms. So, you really need to describe how you're going to do this delivery. So how is that going to work? Are you going to use a learning management system? Are you going to use your existing student management system? How are you going to get the students in there? They want a lot of bit about that. Actually, I noticed that they were asking things like security and those sorts of things. We've got all of that information available if you need that.
So we would reference you as a third-party provider, for example, Scott?
Yeah, you could do. If what you're planning on doing involves us doing some work for you, then you could involve us as a third-party provider. Just the fact that I know in your case, Tracy, you'd be using our student management system to deliver the training, I think that's relevant. And then you can sing to the sky about the fact that you've got another Queensland business involved. So yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So thank you. So you are predominantly Queensland-based, or?
Yeah, well, we're based in, the offices are based in Queensland.
Yeah,
and,
okay, that's good.
Our registered office is here, so yeah.
Yeah.
Now, there is a question about how access will be limited to Queensland-based users and businesses. Now, we actually already have a function which gets people to enter a postcode in, and we validate that postcode to make sure it's a Queensland postcode. So, I'm not sure what else they're requiring people to do, but there is a requirement also to gather some of the eventness related data about Indigenous status of the participants and those sorts of things. So there's a possibility there you could maybe gather addresses and things. Not that you really want to do anything with them, because you want to make this as fewer touch points as possible, right? You don't have to gather this data being an RTO. As part of your RTO reporting. This is not required for RTO reporting because you're not going to be issuing any qualifications. This is specifically for non-qualification courses. That means that you can choose how you feel as though you're going to determine these people are from Queensland.
Sorry, did you just say it's for non-qualification?
Yeah, so you're not going to be issuing a statement of attainment. So you can still use your course materials. And I think this is where it's a possibility for RTOs to use their course materials they've got at the moment for what they normally do, but just not issue a qualification or a statement of attainment.
Why not?
Yeah. So why not reuse the material you've already got, right?
No. I mean, why aren't we using, because all of our first aid training is nationally qualified. It has to be.
Yes, I know, but you can deliver that without saying you can basically deliver an online course, a first aid course, and it doesn't have to be national. You don't have to issue a statement of attainment. You won't say that this is a nationally qualified course, but you can reuse that material.
So effectively, you'd be rebadging your RTO courses by basically not issuing the statement of attainment after the course, and that way it qualifies as non-formal education. Because
this is about
all of our clients want the nationally accredited training. That's the sticking point. Is this EOI specifically for non-accredited?
Yeah. But the benefit of it is that any material you create as part of this EOI, you can then reuse later for anything you want, such as nationally accredited training.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Yeah.
So there's a benefit in both ways. If you're going to develop new material, or if you're going to take existing nationally accredited material and put it into a new format, you might deliver it for this EOI, for this particular proposal, you might deliver it as a non-formal training entity, but then there's nothing to stop you using it in formal training as well if it meets all the criteria.
Right, okay.
So if you're an RTO sitting out there with some course materials and you've always thought, I'd love to go online, this is like the perfect opportunity. This is like, hey, they want you to put it online. And what's more is they're not going to keep you constrained by how you do it. You can actually experiment with it.
Gotcha.
What did you think, Thomas, about the whole limiting access to Queensland-based users and businesses? Had you thought about how you might, because I thought about postcodes, I thought that could be the only way to do it. And you could validate people by IP address, but that can get a bit dodgy. So, yeah,
it's actually a pretty tricky one. I've actually sent, and we'll get to it later, but I've sent a couple of questions through to the EOI contact about getting a bit more clarification around that. So I think once she comes back to me, I might swing that information over to you, and you can make it available via the YouTube channel.
Yeah, that would be cool because the postcode's an easy way to do it, but anyone can guess a postcode. You just put 4,000. So
yeah, and IP addresses. Yeah, there's many ways around that as well.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
So as soon as I get something, I'll flick that through to you.
Yeah, that'd be helpful. Okay, so and of course they're looking for standard service agreement or key performance metrics, and don't let that scare you off. You don't have to worry about that too much. Just think of some very key performance measurements that you want to supply to measure the success. Now, you're not guaranteeing any success. You're just going to supply the data and choose data you can easily measure. So if you can get the total number of registrations, the total number of certificates of attendance or statements of attendance, there's not statements of attainment, but attendance, then those are the figures you can get really easily. I know from within course sales anyway, and I'm sure most other student management systems will do the same. But just make your life easy by not sort of over-promising some sort of complex analysis and things like that might take a bit of an effort to find out. Okay, so COVID-19 business support is item number 3. So they want to know how the response will improve employment or economic recovery outcomes, how it will support COVID-19 impacted Queenslanders where existing jobs are vulnerable. So if you've got any stories you can talk about which describe how this expands the skills of the current individual, how this allows them to look at other career options or will prepare them better for when business does pick up, those are good stories to tell. And here we go. They want to detail local Australian content. And how it relates to Australian vocational education. Okay, now if you've got content there as an RTO that's already set up with vocational education, ASCOR approved, you can clearly show how it's connected into Australian vocational education. You can maybe even talk about the fact that once they've done these 3 sections, let's say in your case, Tracy, have done these 3 sections of first aid training, they can actually come along and attend an accredited training course when they're ready. And so that shows the natural progression from this non-formal training into the formal training.
Yeah.
Now, it's not Jameson, sorry. I've forgotten your name, sorry. I know it's like
Dennis McKenzie.
Dennis, hi Dennis. How's this traveling for you, Dennis? Is this making sense for you?
Yeah, good. Some interesting comments that I'm hearing, and the non-credited courses as well too. We can easily adapt to that with some of our units of competency that we can individually present or provide. As you know, Scott, we already have an online platform, which got us through the COVID virus, and thankfully we'd had it up and operating for 7 or 8 years. So the bugs were out of it. Excuse the pun.
Well done. That's good. Actually, you've come up with something really relevant, and I think that it's really useful if you can chunk down your courses into little bits. And those units of competency are quite good, but there are even possibilities of chunking it down further. And so effectively, people are getting bite-sized learning out of it. It means it's less effort for you to get up and running because, trying to move an entire unit of competency to online might be a bit much, but if you can take a portion of it, and then that can be effectively an online course that'd be perfect for these guys in their EOI.
I think on a technical side, I'd probably need to ask our programmers whether we could dissect some units out of our online courses as an individual unit.
Yeah, no, exactly.
I don't think that's difficult.
No, look, you can do anything. Those techie guys can do anything. They're like magicians.
Apparently. Sometimes they falter.
It's bad magic they're using. Okay, so number 4, time frame and reporting. So they're interested in your ability to project manage this work. They're expecting this to be a new effort and it's going to be managed like a project. So I'm quite conveniently, I'm a project management trainer in Prince 2. So I'm quite familiar with this concept of how you're going to manage this endeavor as a project. And so being able to outline a framework of how you're going to do this is helpful. It doesn't have to be too complex. I suggest you keep it nice and simple. but providing, a basic timeline of things that you're planning on doing, looking at quality, looking at risks, looking at, the project management plan and those sorts of things. That's all useful sort of phrases and concepts to be able to get across here to convince them that you're able to manage it successfully. So yeah, I think that's uptake of training services, broad uptake of various industries. Yeah, I think it, and because they're measuring the success on those outcomes, being able to supply that data would probably be useful as well. So if you're able to demonstrate that you can actually do that analysis, that can be quite helpful. You're not expected though because I'm assuming this is not going to be promoted by you. Like once you've effectively delivered it, I'm assuming the government is going to be promoting this and sending it out to all the people that could potentially qualify for it.
Yeah, they will be. There'll be a platform within, or the comms will go out from Department of Small Business. Yeah. And I don't know to how many or where they're getting their information from, but yeah, it'll be marketed by them.
There's definitely a few things here that I'm not quite sure how they're going to do it. So they're asking you to have your own IT system in place that's going to be able to deliver the training, which is smart because, then you keep it in-house. But they've also talked about how they're going to, disseminate the information about this. Now, are they going to literally have links to all the different websites that provide this service? I'm sure they must be looking at multiple suppliers to this. It can't just be one supplier for this. I think they're going to ask for it because it's there to support small businesses. I think it'd be crazy for them to just go for one large business and give the whole $4 million to one. That just seems nuts, right? So I suspect they're going to try and spread it over the country, not just Southeast Queensland, but also try and make it, a number of different organisations focusing on their specialisms. Okay, and then finally, number 5, value for money. They want you to demonstrate how the price and the deliverables provide value for money. Now, value for money is about thinking about effectively the intangible benefits of doing a particular course or a particular target group, and how much that you could even see if you can get some figures together and demonstrate how much this would be worth. So if you, for example, and Tracy's is a brilliant case, I reckon, where you've got this example of maybe taking a first aid course, breaking it down into little bits, and then as a collection, it's effectively it's a first aid training course. So if you could say, if the distribution of this information goes out to say 1 million Queenslanders who have been affected, and then assuming that we have a 10% uptake. That's 100,000 people. It's 100,000 people doing this first aid course. It's 100,000 people that maybe had not done a first aid course before. They're suddenly able to deliver first aid, at least partially to the point of being able to do it proficiently, which is going to improve, the quality of life and the protection of those people around them. There's
yeah.
And you can even do a guesstimate and say, this isn't quite the same as doing a qualified course with a trainer sitting beside them. So let's give it roughly about a 70% value compared to going on a course. Well, a normal course costs like $150, and so therefore this is worth X, Y, Z. And so you can quickly do some calculations there, showing your workings that maybe demonstrate the value of money for these people going out and doing it, and then the cost that you're going to request from them.
And this is a key part of the criteria as well. If you can nail this part here, it will certainly get you, put you above, put you in the upper echelon, I guess, who are applying for this. I'd say usually, and they haven't given us, like Scott mentioned earlier, they haven't, strangely, because they normally give you, what percentage each criteria is worth. This one will be at least 20 to 25% minimum, and probably a bit more. So it'll be a big part of their assessment of your submission. If you can get it right, it's a real big step forward.
Okay, so now the risks. So those are the criteria. There are a number of risks associated with tendering or putting forward for this EOI. The biggest one, I think, is the unlimited subscription model. They're wanting on-demand, unlimited training. Now, let's navel gaze for a bit and imagine ourselves having won this, and we launch it And instead of the 100,000 people, we get 1 million people hitting our website doing these courses. And we're like, oh my gosh, who would have expected that many people? Suddenly your bookings within course sales are going brrr, and you can't see them all. You're having to manage it. Suddenly there's all this administration cost you hadn't expected. There is a potential risk here with the unlimited subscription model. And yeah, so you could argue it's just a benefit because the idea of getting all those potential customers' details together is great, and you're going to prove that you delivered a valuable product to the community. But there is, of course, a risk. So yeah, just remember that when you're thinking about your pricing. Don't be too conservative. Yeah, don't try and be too conservative on the pricing. Sorry, what was that, Dennis? What was the point?
Oh, no, excuse me, Scott. I was just listening to your comments.
That's okay. No worries, mate.
Writing a couple of notes down.
Yeah. Also, you can tend to underestimate the amount of effort required. In a classic example for us when we work with RTOs is they underestimate the amount of effort required to create course materials. And maybe Tracy, you can help us here, because I believe you got involved recently with creating some course materials. I'm not sure how closely you were involved with that, but did you find that it went on longer than you expected, or?
Oh, definitely. And even with existing course material, adapting it from what we've got practical applications, and we still have a practical application that they've got to come to, but putting a lot of that into the PowerPoints, into the little videos that we did. Yeah, even though it was existing course material, it still required more time, not more effort, but more time to nut it all down and what have you.
Yeah, that's right.
I believe it will get easier as we go along. Obviously, it's like anything, the first time you do it. We've done the CPR now, and now the first aid, it's been a lot easier doing that. And it's like me, I'm putting another couple of units on scope at the moment, and I now know what it takes to get there, and it's not as hard as the first time, the original. That's certainly, you do underestimate.
Yeah, I think so you're effectively a couple of steps ahead of everyone else, because if everyone else is sort of guessing and they haven't done it before, then you're definitely ahead of it. So that's good to hear. Okay, and technical issues, of course, this is all about technology, unfortunately. You're stepping into a realm of where computers become effectively your delivery, they're your trainer, they're your essential item. And so having reliable partners is really important. At Course Sales, we're lucky enough to be able to have multiple servers where she spread the load across. And currently our load on our servers is roughly around about 1% across our servers. So we have a lot of capacity there. So we're pretty good. And we get that used up around about a VECMAS reporting time. It bumps up to like 40 or 50%, which is a bit scary for us. But if you do happen to be overrun by a large number of users, with a bit of luck, we're going to be able to support it. So, I don't know about the beyond 1 million, but hopefully with 1 million should be fine. And of course, your finance modeling needs to be cautious as well. So this is when the finance modeling is about saying, okay, what's the potential of the delivery? What is the potential of staff involvement for each individual item? Are there any costs that we're not aware of that could occur in the next 6 months? But this is about supplying these services unlimited at any time for 6 months to basically as many people as the Queensland government want to provide it to. So, you got to sort of guess, right? We have a rough guesstimate when we run free courses. So every now and then we run a free course because I run a training company as well. And when we do these free courses, they're usually types of breakfast events or some sort of event where we've got a special speaker coming along. And when we do them, we basically guess that roughly 40 to 50% of people are not going to turn up. So we pitch it to say 100 people and we advance. We've got a venue, and the venue we know holds 50 people, but we'll overbook it, which is what they do on planes sometimes. It can be a bit annoying, but we'll overbook it knowing that we've got a certain portion of people who won't come on the course. And that's about working out, okay, what portion of people are going to complete the course? What portion of people are going to enroll on the course? And there's nothing, I didn't see anything in the document that said you couldn't follow up with these customers afterwards with a potential sales proposition to them either. Did you see anything, Thomas, that said you couldn't do that, or there was any sort of restriction on being able to do that?
No, there was nothing there, which is a little bit strange, but no, it's nothing there. So, yeah.
So I think it's effectively, once you've got these people doing your course, they're a potential customer from then on, aren't they? So, yeah. Okay, so we've got a suggested EOI response plan. So this is the sort of thing you might do over, say, a week, depending on when you start. This is just on a week, but of course you can add a couple of days into each of these points. But to give you a bit of an idea, so you're talking about reading all the documents, confirming criteria can be met. So make sure you get familiar with that document. It is important. I go through it, I tend to highlight it, and then I come back to it the next day and just double check and read through it again, make sure I've highlighted all the right bits. You can allocate tasks to staff if you're lucky enough to have people you can sort of offload stuff to. Start getting some sections written. Review your insurance, and we're going to talk about insurance in a moment, because there is actually a mention about having insurance for professional indemnity and also public liability, as well as the other insurance they've got there. Also partners, so partners can help you. So course sales, we can help you provide some sections to the EOI that are related to the technology provision. Once you've got those together, review those documentations, okay? Review the documents, make sure they all read correctly. Definitely have one person, I suggest, who makes sure the whole document is consistent. So read through each of the sections. Confirm the financials. I usually do this about 3 or 4 times. I do it myself, send it to my financial controller, get it back. I read it through again myself, tweak a little bit, send it back to her. I want to get the financials just right. And then review them and try and submit it early. So try and submit it even before the Monday, definitely before the 2 p.m. deadline. And it's via email. And with a bit of luck, I'm not sure, but I'm assuming they're going to give us a response to say that the email has been received. But definitely worthwhile sending it in advance and not waiting to the last minute.
On that that review section there that you've got on the weekend, bit of advice I'd offer is if you can, because by this stage you'll have read your submission many times over. So I'd strongly recommend and always recommend to our small business clients who are submitting for government work, get someone else to review it, someone who's not too close to it, and preferably someone who may have some experience in either, or has been involved in some way, shape or form with government tendering or applying for government work. They'll get them actually, if they can, if they've got the time, to give you a bit of a rough assessment as well, because what you'll find is they will find gaps. They'll find areas that you've looked at so many times, you're actually missing it. And they can pick out some obvious things which could get you those extra few points you need to get you over the line when they come to assess. So have a think on that if you do decide to submit.
Yeah, and I know Thomas does actually do that for customers. So if you guys don't have anyone close by you can get to do that, then Thomas is definitely available, I'm sure.
Yeah,
you can make some time. Okay, so so how can we help? Like I said, we can provide sections. Course sales definitely can provide sections if you're going to be using course sales for that. We can also provide advice about the efforts involved. Sometimes you might need quotes for the work to be done. So if you're struggling to find someone for content creation or struggling to find someone for IT service creation, we can do that. And I know that Thomas particularly works around strategy and partnerships and stuff and reviewing responses. He's pretty au fait with looking through those sorts of things. So as a summary, I'll leave this for Thomas. Thomas worked pretty hard on these slides here, so I'm going to give him the floor now. Thomas, you want to take us through these?
Sure. If you've read through the document, you'll see that they or any formal piece of government business, they'll always give you a customer contact. In this particular EOI, it's Joanna Taylor. I encourage you to reach out to those contacts, make contact with them. If you've got any questions, queries, anything at all, that's the person you go to. But it's really good. What a lot of people don't understand or don't know as well is a lot of the time, not all, but a lot of the time, the person that they put forward as the contact is actually very close to the problem, or very close to the problem the government's trying to solve. So what I mean by that is a lot of the time they'll actually be part of the selection panel going through the responses. So if you touch base with them, they're starting to get a little bit more familiar with you and whatnot. It can help you in some ways down the track as well, potentially. And the other advantage of that as well is you'll get an idea on response times. So if you send an email with some questions and it takes 2 days for them to come back to you, then you're going to have to get your questions in pretty early because you might be waiting for a long response. Mandatory.
Sorry, I was just going to say, Thomas, in fact, I have actually emailed Joanna Taylor as well and asked her a question, and she got back to me in a couple of days. So that was pretty cool, I thought.
Yeah. If you're getting down to, you don't want to be contacting them too much at the death, because that doesn't really, when I say at the death, I mean, the last day or two of the response. Try and keep those responses early, but they can help you in any number of ways. Sometimes they'll actually have to broadcast their responses out to everyone, but I don't believe that's the case for this one. So anything you help might give you that little bit of an edge as well.
Mm. Yep.
The second point there, mandatory can be, you'll see mandatory in a lot of government tendering documents and contract documents. For you to submit, you must have this, you must have that, you must meet this requirement, you must meet the others. This one is no different, but be careful, be aware of the wording. Like, for example, for the insurances there, it says you must have public liability, you must have, what were the other ones?
Professional indemnity and I think employee insurance as well.
Yes, it says it's a mandatory requirement. And that does put a lot of people off when they look at it and go, you know what, we don't have that big bit of machinery for this job, or we don't have these insurances in place, so we're just not going to submit. What a lot of people aren't aware of is, if you look at the fine print, so to speak, it says you need to have these in place before you actually start the work. But after you've been found, you can do that after you've actually been given the business. So you don't have to show those insurances until they say, hey, you're the winner. Then spend the money, get your insurances in place, and then you'll be able to submit those to government. So just be aware of that. Not a lot of people are, and a lot of small businesses pass on some really good contracts and good earners and good government pieces of business because they're put off by that word mandatory. If you read through this proposal as well, when it says proposal should focus on skill development, we'll need to outline how it will contribute to improved employment, economic recovery outcomes for small business owners, operators, employees. This is said at least 3 or 4 times throughout the document. If you see things that are repetitive, it's going to be a big factor when they go to assessing the submission. So if you decide to submit, print that, cut it out, stick it up in front of you, on top of your PC, and just make sure as you're doing your submission, you keep coming back to that, because it is extremely important for this particular EOI.
Yeah, it's funny, those things, right? If you see, like you said, if you see something written lots of times, it's really important to them. So make sure you say it. You make sure you definitely respond to that bit.
Exactly. Yeah, this one's pretty obvious, but section 3.2, that evaluation criteria that Scott went through, that's when they go through and they do their assessments at the other end, when these submissions comes through, they'll be scoring it against each of those bullet points. Have you met that criteria? Have you met this criteria? Very rarely do organizations, even the big companies, do they tick every box. But the more you can tick, obviously, the better chance you're going to have to get through. And that criteria 5, value for money, almost always it's the most heavily weighted, at least that I've seen in the last 15 years or so. If you have a look if you've made note of section 5 as well, additional information, a lot of organizations really don't. Sorry
about that. I touched the mouse by mistake.
Oh, I missed that actually. That additional information section, a lot of organizations, it's at the end. So you've come to the end of submission. You figure you've included everything already in the body of it. And a lot of the time it's left blank. Here's where I recommend, or I strongly advise you to put any extra value adds that you can go above and beyond what you already have in this submission. And it's, yeah, they're not usually heavily weighted, but if government can see that you're offering something, it may not actually be, you might be offering something above and beyond. It may not be relevant exactly to this particular EOI, but it might save them some money in areas, or whether it's implementation or tracking or reporting. Then, you know, if they raise their eyebrows and look at it and they can see that it's going to help them in some way, then it'll certainly help it when they go to, you know, award the winners for this. And the last one, I almost, from experience, because I've lost, I mean, I've won a lot, but I've also lost a lot, prepare to lose. It sounds really weird nowadays as well, that, you know, everyone's talking about, you know, winning and whatnot. These are not easy to get. I don't think I've ever seen a business win first time over. Not to say it hasn't been done, but you have to start somewhere. And government contracts, tenders, BAU, particularly for business, you know, the BAU from government is a huge earner, but grants, contracts, EOIs, once you start getting in and start bidding for these, you will get better, you will improve. But if you do apply for this and you do miss out, a lot of organizations, they really just not give up, but a lot of them sort of think, put it in the too hard basket. I encourage you to request from government what's called a debrief. So if you do lose, request that debrief. It's actually, well, it was a face-to-face meeting. I believe now that with COVID, they're changing to online. But you can actually sit down with someone who's been on that selection panel, and they'll basically give you where you went wrong, where you were weak, what you need to improve on in future, what worked for them, what didn't work for them. And it really does allow smart companies who are going to continue to bid for government business. It allows them to refine their submissions and their proposals. Big business have been doing it for ages. If they ever miss out, they always go to debriefs, and then their next submissions are better and it increases their chances on winning. So if you do lose, you can really take some valuable things away from it. Get that debrief, sit down with someone who's been on that panel, and really set the agenda. You'll be able to set an agenda. There's some things you can't ask for, like you can't compare yourself to the winners. And there's a few don'ts there, but there are a lot of good things you can get out of those debriefs. And I strongly encourage any business to request them if they do happen to lose out.
Cool. So use it as a learning experience. It's a good thing to do. Okay, so we had a few frequently asked questions here, which we'll just quickly go through. So if you're not a Queensland registered organisation, you do a lot of business in Queensland, can you apply? Yes, you can. So there is an option to not necessarily be based in Queensland, but you can at least do a majority of business or a large portion of business in Queensland, and then you can apply. I don't have any online training yet. Should I bother to apply? Definitely. This is your opportunity. This is where turning it online, you know, that's what they're looking for. So I think that's a definitely yes there. Responding sounds like a lot of work. Should I bother? Oh my gosh, that's a hard question. I know that Thomas is a resounding yes for that, aren't you, Thomas? He's like, give it a go.
If you want to open up government revenue streams and they can be life-changing for businesses once you start tapping into a few of these. If you meet the mandatory requirements and you want to open government revenue streams, if you tick those boxes, then absolutely apply.
Yep, definitely. And then how do I estimate the work involved to respond? Look, I think that's just about experience, right? Like Tracy's just said regarding her online learning materials. The first time you do it, it takes a little bit longer. But once you've got a few of these EOIs behind you, often there are sections that you can copy and paste in, and they can just be modified to make sure they match the current EOI. But generally speaking, it saves you a lot of time and effort. Would that be true to say, Thomas, in your experience, you felt like you had a good database of past applications to retrieve from?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's when you're highlighting those debriefs as well, anything that they've got positive or glowing to say, then you make big highlights around those and reuse those, because you know they're going to score you well for future. Good
point. Yeah, so you got someone actually telling you what was good and what was bad, right? So
yeah, exactly.
Yep. Okay, cool. So that's pretty much it. We've got these list of links. We'll include these links in the YouTube comments or description below, so you can go to these items. In particular, Think Learning. Thomas is Think Learning, and you can go and get his book at winninggovernmentbusiness.net.au as well. We've got a link to the online business training EOI, and of course some links to course sales as well. We'll go and have a look. How'd that go, Tracy? Have you got any further questions?
Good. I think I'm still a little bit perturbed, for want of a better word, is because with first aid training, it has to be nationally accredited. All of our clients, there's no one that comes just for the attendance. It has to be accredited. Teachers, nurses, doctors, you name it, that have to have that nationally accredited, and that's part of insurance as well. Yes, the training is nationally accredited. So I'm kind of looking at this now, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is almost like a stepping stone. Is it because they don't feel that we can meet the ASQA requirements for it to be nationally recognised, or is it a stepping stone to see how we all fare in all of this? What would be the answer there?
I don't know. I think that's a good question. I think what their logic is that they want to supply training, sort of informal training or non-formal training to people out there who have lost their jobs, but don't want to go through the process of expecting to get the, there's already funds available for people to go and do accredited training. So this is the non-formal training. In particular, they're wanting it to be online, unlimited, and on demand. And I think that you'd struggle as an organization to provide that if you're doing accredited training, right? Because you do have some costs involved with each individual.
Yeah, I can add to that as well. I've got no doubt that it's a time factor as well. I mean, if we go back to the target market for this, small business owners, small business operators, small business employees, sitting down and offering them a 6-month diploma in whatever it might be. These businesses need help, and they need it, and they need help quickly. So that I believe when they sat down and put this EOI up, they're looking for, the consensus was that they're looking for shorter, sharper, immediate pieces of knowledge that an unemployed small business person can sort of put on their resume and say, hey, look, I've undertaken this first aid training course, a non-accredited training course or whatever, but small business owners, if don't have a lot of those skills in-house, then, that'll definitely hold some appeal. And it's those shorter chunks and the time factor that would be, I reckon, one of the main drivers behind them not including your formal qualifications.
I think too, Tracy.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry, go. Sorry, yeah.
I was thinking with other first aid training organisations I've spoken to, they do identify other individuals, like, for example, speech therapists, and there are other people out there in the community which don't require an accredited first aid course, but do want to know about like choking, for example, or do not know about how to provide quick first aid. It's not. Maybe they're not going to get it because it's a requirement. So maybe your target audience isn't going to be people who work in childcare centres, for example, who need to have an accreditation. Maybe the target audience is going to be those people who work in a bar, or workplaces where it's not, you're an office worker, you've got someone who's first aid, but you also want to have a little bit of knowledge around first aid, but you don't want to go and do a full course, and you want to do it online, you want to do it after work and that sort of thing. So.
Yeah, okay.
But
just a quick question too. You've seen what we've done so far, as with the courses that we've been developing. What's the big difference with something to go and I'm talking cost-wise, to Moodle? If we decided this is going really well for us and we want to develop it under Moodle, I mean, what's the cost there?
Well, look, the costs are, number one, you've got the service, like the Moodle server to supply, and that's effectively like a course sale. So it's you can either buy, it's a whole variety you can buy. You can buy a shared hosting, which is where you effectively purchase a portion of a server, which we have offered to some of our customers. You can also buy your own server, so you have a server that we've also done this for customers where it's dedicated. So it's a dedicated server for Moodle. And obviously the pricing of a dedicated versus a shared, there's a bit of a difference there. But then you've got the effort as well to move the content into Moodle, as opposed to having it on the multi-choice. You've also got a lot more options there. You can do things like get, you've probably done them before. They're like interactive learning things where things whiz from the left and the right, and you drag stuff across, or you watch a little video and then you watch an audio, and there's that SCORM type interactive learning that can be developed as well, and that's what Moodle is really good at managing. So there's a bit of a learning curve there, and there's a bit of a data transfer effort, and there's also the ongoing costs of having the server there. So what you've got now is probably the least expensive option. And that's a really good way of getting up and running and testing it out and making sure you're happy with it and it's going to work for your customers and stuff.